Hello, peace be with you. I'm starting a new series, Who is Fooled, trying to deal with political discourses, news, the situations around the world, could be in the Middle East or in the West or in African countries, and trying to get a sense of what is happening and what is going on behind the scene, and asking some questions and hypotheses that we need to get or to deal with when it comes to what is happening around the world. And every 10 days, 2 weeks, or depending on news on what is happening, I will try to deal with the situation and ask some questions, and at least try to react in a rational way, understanding what is going on beyond the propaganda and beyond the media coverage and beyond what is said by politicians. I think it's important to get that sense that we need now to resist intellectually to what is happening through a deeper, a thorough understanding of what is happening. So this first program, this first meeting with you today, it's going to be about the situation in the Middle East, and to try to retroactively to get a better understanding, or at least to ask some questions and to deal with some issues that maybe we haven't focused enough on, some of them at least. We were told that on the 7th of October everything started, and this was the beginning of this narrative that we are all facing today. It happened, and the 7th of October was a turning point in history. Everything started in the Middle East at that time. A little bit like what happened on the September the 11th, 2001, a turning point with terrorism, and the world changed, and our understanding of the way we have to deal with Islam and political Islam and radical Muslims and terrorism is the new narrative, and it had impact on the way we deal with security, the way we deal with controlling societies, controlling free speeches, and all these dimensions within our democracy. So the 7th of October is like a shock, changed everything in the way we had to deal with the situation in the Middle East. And if you read the book of Naomi Klein, the Shock Doctrine, it's something which has to do with this, in which way something which is happening in history is pushing us to react emotionally, and the people are emotionally reacting, and with the narrative of it was so huge and so outrageous that the only way for you is to condemn and to start your discussion about the Middle East through that prism, as if nothing happened before. And this is the way we had to react, by condemning, and once again, the reality of the emotional shock is something that pushed even the people who knew and repeated. It didn't start on the 7th of October. It started 75 years before. We all knew and said this, but at the same time we had to react. So the power of this narrative imposed onto our way of dealing with the issue is something which it's important to consider, because the narrative was so powerful that you had to take a position about it, and to put yourself in a situation. If you don't condemn, you are out of the discussion. And if you condemn, how are you going to nuance the way you are dealing with the issue, not to be on the side of the oppressors or the side of Israel, and at the same time being able to say something about the legitimate Palestinian resistance? And it's something that was difficult, and you had to build, to construct a narrative or the rationale of your own narrative resisting the imposed narrative. Everything started on the 7th of October. And what we see today is that the technology, the media coverage, the power of this media coverage, the power of the way the technology avoiding the journalist on the ground and dealing with us in a way where you have programs on TV, on the social media, even though on social media we had the alternative discourse, so to speak, is something that it's important. And then you know that Noam Chomsky, taking this from what happened during the Vietnamese War, was talking about and dealing with manufacturing consent. Now it's even more than that. It's not manufacturing consent, is to spread around fear in order to be unable and to be scared of dissent, of being against and resisting the majority of the imposed narrative. So it's really being scared of what is imposed, and it's as if we're not only dealing today with terrorism, and terrorists should be condemned, of course, but intellectual terrorism, where you are not invited to agree, you are scared to disagree. You are not invited to be silent. If you are silent and still you want to talk, the fact is that whatever you are going to say is going to be taken against you. So the point here is really to understand the power of this current technology and current way of dealing with the media, plus, of course, when you consider the fact that on the ground they were killing journalists and they were avoiding any alternative discourse. So this is one thing which is important when it comes to this. And with this imposed narrative, we were all invited to condemn. And our first reaction was to say, you know what? It didn't start on the 7th of September. It started 75 years before. Of course, we have to put things into perspective. Second thing is Netanyahu is scared because of his legal affairs, and at the same time, he has no plan. The only plan he has is to destroy, and this is the reaction, and he's doing this because, in fact, this is the way for him to do two things. First, to avoid the legal affairs that he is facing and the cases that he is facing, and at the same time the failure of the security and the control that happened on the very 7th of October. This is what we were saying, and as if this was the reaction, and on our way of resisting the imposed narrative, we were quite naive in a way by repeating this and not understanding that it might be something which was much deeper than that and much more organized and planified and than what we thought it was at the beginning. And we have now some of the news that we have and the information that we got since then are giving us another picture. So let us start with something which is to take a step back and to try to think about it in another way. First, the first position, which was difficult, and I think that we need to be clear, and I said it straight on the 7th of October and the day after, saying that there is a legitimate resistance in Palestine because there are, and these are, international conventions and declarations are just saying it. When you are occupied, you are legitimate to resist. So the Palestinian resistance is legitimate. The means are not all legitimate, and killing innocent people, killing civilians, it's terrorism, and this couldn't be accepted. And we have to make a difference between the organization and the actions. And this is what we did during the Second World War. This is what we did in Ireland. This is what we did even Israel. You know, Irgun and Stern were terrorist organizations. Not only they have terrorist actions, but they were terror because the very essence of the organization was to kill innocent people, which is not the case of the Palestinian resistance, Hamas and others. It's just to resist the occupation. And on this, we have to understand the legitimate way they have to resist, but not using always legitimate means. And we have to condemn the killing of innocent people, whatever. So this is the position of principle that is very important to have from the very beginning when it comes to this situation in the Middle East. So this, I think it's important to repeat and to say. Now, having said this, we just throw away the narrative and the imposed narrative and we try to think about what happened. Because straight after what happened, I was saying there are hypotheses that we have to consider when it comes to, okay, it was done by Hamas, but it might be as well that something happened which was, yes, Hamas planned and wanted to do it on the 7th of October, but it might be also that it was something that we have to listen to coming from Israeli soldiers and people saying, you know what, close to the wall, when there was a cat, we were able to know that she was moving. So how come this could happen for 5 hours? They let this happen with no reaction. So, and what if it was a trap? That in fact, contrary to what we said, Netanyahu is doing this because he doesn't want to deal with the fact that the security failure was so big that it might be that the hypothesis, and still it's an hypothesis, that they knew it's something that we have to consider. And knowing that at the same time soldiers were saying this, they didn't buy the whole narrative coming from the Israeli government. And plus, what was said by Haaretz afterward, that the way they come 6 hours later, killed their own people, the Hannibal, how do they call it? The Hannibal political decision, so which was to just to put it in this in a clear way, to kill their own people in order not to have hostages. This was also directive. So the Hannibal directive was enforced again few months before, and then Haaretz saying that the Israeli army, Tzahal, killed their own people in the rave party in the kibbutz, and we had also witnesses saying that this happened. So in fact, creating the narrative, something big happened on the 7th of October, but not only through Hamas, also with the fact that the Israeli army killed their own people and made it kill, and with so many lies about the children killed, the rapes and decapitating and all this, we know now that they were lies and it didn't happen. So all this narrative, as if, you know, pushing us to react and say, okay, I condemn and this, and then for us to think, oh, Netanyahu is just doing this for the sake of his own personal salvation. I think that we haven't heard what was said by people from within, saying that this happened and then the Israeli army killed, and they knew few months before that something was going to happen. For 5 hours they did not react. It's weird to see this happening. And the very same day, the one that we said has no plan, saying straight away the very same day and the day after, is going to be long and we are going to react, as if he knew that it's a long, long process with a plan. Now, what we heard, which is confirming that something was in the pipelines, was that all these pipers and talkie-walkies that exploded and killing more than 3,000 people from Hezbollah around the world, this was organized and planned since 2022, meaning before the 7th of October. So the way we are looking at the recent history by thinking after Gaza they came to Lebanon might be the opposite. So that in fact the plan was before the 7th of October to target Lebanon and to target Hezbollah and to target and just to get rid of what is happening in Gaza, of course, to carry on colonization in the West Bank and to deal with Hezbollah and the allies of Iran, as if they want to isolate Iran. And now we think that, oh yes, Iran, it's clever, they don't want to react because they are scared. But Israel and the Israeli government are not crazy people, they're not mad. They knew and they know that Iran is not going to react because it's not in their advantage now to do this. And they know that the balance of power, it's not in their favor. So it might be that this way of isolating is the first step to keep Iran, because they need Iran just to be the enemy around, helping Israel to carry on its plan at different levels. They are not scared of the Gulf, the Persian Gulf states, and Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain, and the UAE. They are not scared. And Iran, it's a player that is useful for the time being. So it might be, it's a hypothesis that I'm putting here. But we have to consider that they are announcing the worst in order to normalize the bad. This is what they are doing. And we are reading history the wrong way by just following this apparent craziness of Netanyahu and the Israeli government. But if you look at the facts now, that okay, they started this in 2022. They were targeting Hezbollah, and now they come to Lebanon. They are trying to neutralize the whole countries around Iran, but still, it's not the time to go for Iran. And if they go, it's going to be another step with something which was planned much before, but not in this way and not the way we were thinking about it. So we have to reconsider our way of dealing with this narrative and this so-called craziness of the Israeli government. Because if we look at the recent history since the 7th of October, this plan and the way they planned the whole thing, and even before now that you know that it was well organized, we were all surprised and say, okay, such a powerful way of dealing with technology to be able to neutralize all the leaders of Hezbollah and to come after them straight after, and the world being silent. And they know why they are doing it at that very moment. Because the United States of America are completely neutralized because the elections are coming. And Europe, it's not able. No European country is able to react. So they are here just accepting this way of dealing with the issue in the Middle East. Now, having said that, again, we should come to our conclusion for today by saying that there are many hypotheses and we have to consider them as they are and not to be fooled by the propaganda and what is said here by the Israeli politicians and the Israeli media, and even the silence of the Western media accepting this narrative, and sometimes being scared of explaining what is happening. And once again, I don't think we are dealing with crazy people. The Israeli government and the leaders are not crazy. And what happened over the last year, it's not out of craziness and people who have lost their mind and they have no plan. And one is just trying to save his self and his future and his status within the Israeli society. I don't think that this is true. Now we are dealing with two things that are important when it comes to these people, because they have a plan and they have a vision, which maybe is what we are lacking today. We are dealing with supremacists and white Jewish supremacists thinking that they are the chosen people and that history is going to achieve and to realize their dreams. And at the same time, Messianism were dealing with the basis of religious texts. They think that the end of history is the accomplishment of the Jewish state, and it could be for the Christians that this is where they are going to be gathered in order for them to convert to Christianity or to be killed, and for the Jewish messianists to think that this is the realization of history. Supremacism and messianism are coming together here by people who don't care about how many people are killed. You know, on the scale of history, it's nothing, because the realization of history is much bigger than 100,000 people killed and 1 million of people displaced. That's nothing. That's nothing in history. If you have to look at what happened in history, we are talking about millions that are going to die for history to be achieved and realized and the mission accomplished. Though this is the way the messianism is dealing with things, so they don't care about what is happening in Palestine. And you can just show images and pictures and media coverage. That's nothing. So supremacism and messianism are coming together at the highest level. And what is weird, what is paradoxical, is to see secular societies, even atheist societies in the West, and people refusing anything which has to do with religion, just being submissive, accepting under this kind of intellectual terrorism what is happening, and accepting to realize the objective, the plan of people who have their mind completely mobilized by dogmatic principles and understanding and vision of history. We are the chosen people. It's the supremacist of our people over all the others, and at the same time in the name of a religious promise, because Palestine is for the Jews, and this was the promised land by God to our people. And you see the West, who for centuries, and the politicians saying and repeating, we don't deal with religion, accepting and being submissive and subjected and accepting this narrative in a way which is really paradoxical, and in fact quite disturbing way. Now, when we come to this understanding, it's in history not weird and not new to see even the people who are supporting Israel being able to deal with anti-Semite. They don't care. As long as you are supporting Israel, be anti-Semite, be whatever you want. If you help us to achieve our plan, that's fine. It happened with Balfour in the UK. It happened so many times with even people who didn't want the Jews in Europe by saying, and now today with far-right parties that are really anti-Semite, but they don't care. if you are anti-Semite but pro-Israel, that's fine. Go ahead. And this is what is happening today in the West, and this is where we need to get the sense that there is here something which has to do with a religious, dogmatic reality and an arrogant way of dealing with humanity through the supremacist ideology. For us today, it's also to read the recent history the other way round, that it might be that what we thought was a crazy reaction was a clever plan, a hypothesis that has to be discussed and considered.